I'll never forget that day. The company commanders had just gotten together for an officer's call. Until the CO arrived, I was trying to argue with them using some of my well-known stories from World War II. That combat was a lot different from what they learned in their military history courses. And I'll say this for the colonel. He let me deliver my punchline before calling the meeting to order.
Sir. All right, as you were, gentlemen. Now, all of you, Sergeant Major included, keep this in mind. Nobody has ever done what we're going to do in the next war. We will almost certainly be outnumbered. The enemy will outweigh us in weapons and material, but we will win. We must be convinced, utterly convinced, that we will win. We know that the first battles will be decisive. We've got to inflict devastating losses on our enemies while incurring minimal losses ourselves. Okay. Now, how do we do that? Daly.
Tactics, sir?
That's the word. Okay. Major Willis has some bulletins from TRADOC. They're important, so read them. They deal with modern weapons, tactics, and training. Here you go. Pass them down. This one deals with the lethality of our weapons and the Soviets. Lethality. It's not a word you hear every day. It means deadliness, killing power, and there'll be a lot of killing power on the modern battlefield. It'll be more dangerous, more deadly than any in history. And it's not a question of quantity. One M60 tank is 10 times more effective than the Sherman M4 tank we used in World War II. World War II tanks, your Sherman, Sergeant Major, had 1 chance in 20 of hitting a target 1,500 meters away. Muzzle velocity was much slower than it is today. And if you were lucky enough to hit a target at that range, you could only go through half as much armor as today's ammunition can. Things were different in Korea. Our tanks could hit a target 1,500 meters away 1 shot out of 3. Today's M60 tanks have a 50-50 chance of a first-round hit at 1,500 meters. And with muzzle velocity double what it was in World War II, the probability of a kill is very high. Wouldn't it be great if the other side were still using weapons from those days? But they're not. The Soviet T-62 tank fires the fastest tank round in the world today. The muzzle velocity is 1 mile per second. It can penetrate the thickest armor on our M60s. Our tank round is about 10% slower, but we're working on that. Overall, the M60 and the T-62 are about equal in accuracy. The T-62 is a little better in close because of that muzzle velocity. Our fire control system gives us the edge farther out. Now, if you follow me over here. This is a model of the T-62 round. Take a good look. This part is called the sabot. It provides the push and guidance for these 3 sections. The compression ring falls away once it's on course, leaving the penetrator and its windbreaker. Captain Shaw, will you pass me the penetrator? It's the penetrator that does the damage. It's made of solid steel and weighs 8.4 pounds.
Sir, may I see that? I don't even want to think what this thing can do traveling a mile a second.
You better, Sergeant Major.
That's what I mean, sir. I am.
Now then, this is a model of the Soviet RPG-7 rocket-propelled grenade. Very effective against tanks at close range. This is the launcher. It fires a fast round and can penetrate any tank that we have. Every Soviet-equipped rifle squad has one, so we'll expect a lot of them on the battlefield, and positioned well forward.
Sir, I was wondering about this case here.
Captain Baker, you're not the only person who's been puzzled by this little item. Back in the October 73 Arab-Israeli War, a lot of Egyptians showed up one day on the Bar-Lev line, all carrying cases just like this. Across the canal, the Israelis had quite a chuckle over it. All those Egyptians going to war with their little suitcases. Well, gentlemen, this is the suitcase sack. It's a deadly Soviet anti-tank guided missile. And it's wire-guided like our TOW. The incident that began with the arrival of these Sagers at the Barlev line ended very unhappily for the Israelis. The Sagar missile is most effective at a range between 1,000 and 3,000 meters. That's about 2 miles. About the same range as our TOW, which means it can kill a tank beyond the range of our tank gun. The size of the shape charge gives it tremendous penetration. The operator guides it with a kind of joystick, and it's usually about 1,000 meters out before he can bring it under control. If highly skilled, he can cut that minimum range to 500 meters. The Sagar operator has a difficult task. He must keep his eyes on the target while guiding the missile at the same time. Even so, a good Sagar operator can hit an exposed tank 8 times out of 10, moving or not. Now, those aren't very friendly odds when you consider that almost every hit results in a kill. It's not hard to see what they mean by the lethality of the modern mechanized battlefield. All of the weapons are far more accurate. They have greater range. They fire faster, and they're very, very destructive. You know, there's a line in one of those bulletins. It says if you can be seen, you can be hit. And if you can be hit, you can be killed. That means don't let them see you. Okay. Now, what have we got to work with? Armor, mechanized infantry, artillery, air defense supported by tactical air. The combined arms team. And all of it has to work together. But the enemy has the same tools. So we have to use ours better than he uses his. No doubt the tank is still the most important weapon on the mechanized battlefield. It's lethal out to 1,500 meters and beyond. It can move and fire at the same time. It's vulnerable to other tanks, infantry rockets, missiles, mines, and air attack. But it's invulnerable to small arms, machine guns, mortars, and artillery. The mech infantry uses a number of weapons for its role in the combined arms team. The tube-launched, optically tracked, wire-guided missile, TOW, is deadly against tanks out to 3,000 meters. It's superior to the Sagar, in that the operator just has to keep his crosshairs on the target, and the guidance system does the rest. The closer enemy tanks move to our position, the more we are vulnerable to their ability to shoot fast and accurately. And when they're in close, they can fire at a very high rate. To counter this, we want a lot of missiles for the close ranges out to 1,000 meters. That's where the Dragon anti-tank missile comes in. It's used by infantry platoons, is highly accurate up to 1,000 meters, and is man-portable. Our Law, another anti-tank weapon, is deadly within 250 meters. If necessary, every man in the squad can be issued one. That makes every man a potential tank killer. Incidentally, we now have the TOW Cobra attack helicopter, combining the range and accuracy of the TOW with the speed and mobility of the Cobra. Our 50 caliber machine guns are highly effective at close range. We'll use them against the enemy's short-range anti-tank weapons and RPGs. When we have to use infantry, mounted or dismounted against enemy positions, we'll cover them with suppressive fire from armored vehicles. Artillery and mortars are a vital part of the combined arms team. We can use them against anti-tank positions, taking advantage of their range and firepower to suppress the enemy, keep him buttoned up. Artillery can provide the covering smoke we need to move forward. And moving forward is what it's all about. Air defense rounds out the team. Vulcan, Red Eye, Hawk, Chaparral, and the Nike Hercules. Automatic and small arms anti-aircraft weapons. Today's tactical aircraft have excellent weapons against tanks. If we want to move on the ground, we'll have to protect ourselves from the threat overhead. We're also taking steps to improve the effectiveness of Vulcan, our most flexible and abundant primary air defense weapon. It does a pretty fair job against ground targets, too. But keep this in mind. The enemy will have weapons just as nasty, just as lethal as our own, and probably a lot more of them. But remember, for every weapon in the enemy arsenal, we have a counterweapon. Modern warfare is a contest of measure and countermeasure, fire and counterfire, maneuver and countermaneuver.
What countermeasures do we have, sir?
The combined arms team: armor, mechanized infantry, artillery, air defense supported by TAC air. Can we afford to leave any one of them out of our battle plan? Huh? No. Because each one has its strengths, each one its weaknesses. But they're all essential, because the weakness of one is compensated for by the strength of another. If and when we go to war, it's up to us to fully understand when, where, and how to use our modern weapon system. So, what have they got? Woodson.
The Saga, sir.
Right. A tank killer effective out to 3,000 meters. What else? Sutton.
The T-62.
Okay, a tank that fires a penetrator that travels 1 mile a second and hits its target 1 for 2 at 1,500 meters. I could go on, but you get the point. Now, where will we fight? A forest in Central Europe? A desert in the Middle East? A city someplace? Wherever it is, the modern battlefield will have little room for mistakes. Number one in all of our minds has got to be just 4 little words: suppression, cover, concealment, and teamwork. Keep him pinned down. Don't let him see us. And use your most efficient weapon system to destroy him. We must attack the confidence of the enemy forces by laying down a superior volume of fire. This will suppress his ability to use his weapons effectively. Realizing that he can kill anything he can see, we must obscure his vision using the terrain, smoke, or camouflage. Teamwork means being able to provide for cover, concealment, and suppression while performing the mission efficiently. In the 73 Arab-Israeli War, more tanks were destroyed in 20 days than anyone could have imagined. Modern tanks. The Arabs had Soviet T-62s and T-55s. The Israelis had our M-60s and British Centurions. We can learn a lot from the mistakes made in that war. The lethality of the weapons involved was not recognized tactically by either side. Exposed armor was annihilated by Saggers, and tanks in open attack were easily destroyed by tanks in defending positions. The losses in that war are a monument to the importance of using cover and concealment. More tanks were destroyed in 20 days than we have in Europe. We also learned something about the effectiveness of the air defense weapons we'll be facing. 3 out of 4 of the Israeli aircraft lost fell to ground-based weapons. We must find ways to knock out the enemy's air defenses. How, Captain Shaw?
Artillery for starters, sir.
Right. Air defense weapons are extremely vulnerable to artillery, as are the Saggers. Sergeant Major, was there anything like the Sagger back in World War II?
No way, sir.
Okay, we've got the equipment. Now, let's talk a little bit about technique. Back then, tanks often attacked in formation, out in the open, exposed. Well, consider what would happen today if we were dumb and sent a formation of tanks and mechanized infantry across open terrain to root out and destroy a smaller enemy force of T-62s and Saggers without suppressing or obscuring their position. Suppose we outnumber and outgun them, but they use the terrain for cover and concealment. We can't see them. But they can see us. suicide. Absolute suicide. It's up to us to make sure that nothing like that ever happens. First, we must never, ever deliberately expose our armor to the enemy under conditions like that. Second, we must use all of the weapons available to us. Artillery might have made a difference in that battle. Artillery to suppress the enemy and obscure his vision. Proper tactics, use of the terrain for cover and concealment, and teamwork. Am I leaving anything out?
No, sir.
Okay, then. Let's go through an exercise. Now, here's our situation. First, consider the terrain. Get a lay of the land. Here we've got some hills. Some wooded, some not. There's the stream. A lot of open country, farmland. Trees growing in a rocky section. And a small town. It's a mixed bag, really. Danger in the open country, cover in the woods and hills. The question is, cover for who? Reconnaissance has done its job. Enemy artillery to the north behind this hill. He's got saggers on the front slope of that hill, and he's captured the town. Down south a bit, rocket-propelled grenades, and T-62s to round out the picture. Looks like he's expecting us. All right. We're down here in the southwest under cover of this hill. We've got to figure out his kill zone. His saggers are effective between 1,000 and 3,000 meters. The T-62s have a 1,500 meter range, and his RPGs are accurate under 300 meters. He's got us pretty well covered. Any one of these weapons can kill us if we move in the open. And we are moving his way. Okay, there it is. Now, what we have to do is develop a coordinated plan of attack using the combined arms team. Remember, the guy who sees his enemy and fires the first shot almost always wins. We've got to take that initiative and put the battle on our terms. So, before you make a move, look, see, and understand. What's he got? Where is it? What can it do? What have we got? Get the whole picture. Okay, let's do it right this time. How?
Select the terrain that gives us the best cover.
Right. It may take longer, but we're more likely to get where we're going. Now, what have we got to work with?
M60s.
Vulcan. Mortars and artillery.
Toe. All right, the first shot is ours. We suppress his saggers and RPGs with artillery and mortar fire. Button up his tanks the same way. Remember, tanks should not move alone on the modern battlefield. Our battle plan has got to provide for continuous overwatching suppressive fire from artillery and following units.
And our tanks providing the overwatch should be in haut defilade.
Without effective suppression, cover, and concealment, tanks are sitting ducks for anti-tank guided missiles. If we're not suppressing our enemy, we're stuck where we are, pinned down, ineffective. And that's the best we can hope for. So, suppression first. He's got air support.
We've got air defense.
If you can't be seen,
You can't be hit. Use our smoke for concealment.
okay. We've got him on the defensive, so let's move. Use the terrain. Keep suppressing him with overwatching fire. Now we have an orchestrated battle with all elements doing their job, working together. Suppression, cover, concealment, teamwork. There is no other way.
got to recognize the lethality of the modern battlefield in our tactics. It is a deadly, dangerous place. The range, accuracy, and destructiveness of our weapons and those of our enemies have made it so. Armor, mechanized infantry, artillery, and air defense. The combined arms team supported by TAC Air. And none of us should doubt for a minute the importance of teamwork and the job we have to do. On the battlefield, the absence of any one of these key team members increases tremendously the vulnerability of those present. Improper tactics or misjudgment of the enemy's capabilities have exactly the same effect. We must use all of our resources: intelligence, communications, aviation, the engineers, and our support, medics, transportation, maintenance, supply, and administration. We all have the same objective: winning. And that takes training. Training and more training. Training to ensure every man knows his job and will do it to the best of his ability. Gentlemen, today we touched only the surface of the challenge we face on the modern battlefield. Read this for our next meeting, because then we'll deal with some specifics. Specifics on how to fight. How to fight to win. All right, men? That'll be all. Thank you.
As I said, it was a day I'll never forget. The old man made us all more aware that history is history, and tomorrow's battles will be a new kind of war.